Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good midday, good night, whichever it is for you. It's such a wonderful, wonderful time in our lives, and I am so thankful to God. In spite of everything that's happening around us, and some things might affect us in some way, but yet I thank and praise God for blessing us to be here another day. Dear God, as I sit before you to speak, I pray to you that my soul you will keep. And if I should die before I finish, I pray to you, dear God, in the name of Jesus, that any outstanding sins will be forgiven. Amen. Hello, hello, hello again. This is Point of View with Ms. Shirley Polk. And today I'm going to talk about hate and prejudice. I went to the Department of Justice. I'm on that site, and I'm going to read to you what is heading out on the site. And I'm going to tell you that the person that is over the Department of Justice, Attorney General, who is, I think she's the, what is this, 87th Attorney General of the United States. And her name is Pam Bundy. Pam Bundy, Bondi. And when I went to the Department of Justice for information, this is what is on here. Democrats have shut down the government. Department of Justice websites are not currently regularly updated. And then it says refer to the Department of Justice's contingency plan for more information. Okay, now I'm going to go on the Department of Justice, and I'm looking at hate crimes, and it has information about hate crimes on it. Then I'm going to another site that I've never been on before, which is the Foundation to Combat Anti-Semitism. The Foundation to Combat Anti-Semitism, which is FCAS. So I'm going to go and give some information here to learn about hate crimes. Learn about hate crimes, and I know we hear it all the time, and we know that it's related to uh, other groups hating other groups. We know that. So what is hate crime? A crime plus motivation for committing the crime based on bias equals hate crime. A crime plus motivation for committing the crime based on bias equals hate crime. So, in the simplest terms, a hate crime must include both hate and a crime. I'm on the Department of Justice site, and it's DO, what is it? Justice.gov. Justice.gov. Now, hate. The term hate can be misleading. Hmm. When used in a hate crime law, the word hate does not mean rage, anger, or general dislike. In this context, hate means bias against people or groups with specific characteristics that are defined by the law. At the federal level, hate crime laws include crimes committed on the basis of the victim's perceived or actual race, color, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, gender, gender identity, or disability. Most state hate crime laws include crimes committed on the basis of race, color, and religion. Many also include crimes committed on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, and disability. So, hate. And it said that hate means something different. I want to give this again. The term hate can be misleading, according to the OJ site. When used in a hate crime law, the word hate does not mean rage, anger, or general dislike. In this context, hate means bias against people or groups with specific characteristics that are defined by the law. Wanted to reiterate that. Now, crime, and I'm on the Department of Justice's site. That's justice.gov. Crime. The crime in hate crime is often a violent crime such as assault, murder, arson, vandalism, or threats to commit such crimes. It may also cover conspiring or asking another person to commit such crimes, even if the crime was never carried out. Now, under the First Amendment, and it seems now in this day and time, here presently, that people are certain people are snubbing their nose at the Constitution. But according to what is on the DOG site, under the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, people cannot be prosecuted simply for their beliefs. I want you to get this. Do we hear this? Oh, yes, we hear it. Let me go again. Under the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, people cannot be prosecuted simply for their beliefs. People may be offended or upset about beliefs that are untrue or based upon false stereotypes, but it is not a crime to express offensive beliefs or to join with others who share such views. However, The First Amendment does not protect against committing a crime just because the conduct is rooted in philosophical beliefs. And so I would admonish you and advise you to read that part of the Constitution because in this day and time, you have to check. Elder Davis used to say, check and recheck. And I believe that, okay? Next section here. Why have hate crime laws? Hate crimes have a broader effect than most other kinds of crimes. Hate crime victims include not only the crime's immediate target, but also others like them. Okay? Now, I want to reread that. This is very important to all of us. Very important to us this day and time and forever for so many of us. Why have hate crime laws? Hate crimes have a broader effect than most other kinds of crime. Hate crime victims include not only the crime's immediate target, but also others like them. Hate crimes affect families, communities, and at times the entire nation. Don't we know it? Next, why report hate crimes? The hate crime reporting gap is the significant disparity between hate crimes that actually occur and those reported to law enforcement. It is critical to report hate crimes not only to show support and get help for victims, but also to send a clear message that the community will not tolerate these kinds of crimes. Reporting hate crimes allows communities and law enforcement to fully understand the scope of the problem in a community and put resources toward preventing and addressing attacks based on bias and hate. Now, the experts estimate that this is astronomical. My goodness. Experts estimate an average of 250,000 hate crimes were committed each year between 2004 and 2015 in the United States. And it's believable. I'm pretty sure there were more than that. The majority and the majority of these were not reported to law enforcement. The majority of the 250,000 hate crimes that were committed between then, those 2000 and 2004 and 2015, 250,000, they say the majority were not reported to law enforcement. Now here we go to terminology. Hate crime. At the federal level, a crime motivated by bias against race, color, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, or disability. Next is bias and hate incidents. Acts of prejudice that are not crimes and do not involve violence, threats, or property damage. So that is a bias or hate incident, which is acts of prejudice that are not crimes and do not involve violence, threats, or property damage. So now we're going to go to some examples of bias categories. Examples of bias categories. Color scenario. And I'm pretty sure this was probably changed. I'm going to go here. 6 men of one race assaulted and seriously injured a man of a different race, and the man of the different race and his friend as they were walking through a residential neighborhood. Witnesses stated the victims were attacked because they were trespassing in a different racial territory, a different race, territory of a different race in the neighborhood. We're familiar with that, aren't we? Yep. Now there's a disability scenario. A, a group home for persons with psychiatric disabilities who were in transition back into the community was the site of a reported arson. Investigation revealed that neighbors had expressed many concerns about the group home in town meetings and were angry that the house was located in their community. Shortly before the fire was reported, a witness heard a man state, "I'll get rid of those crazies. I'll burn them out." 12 persons, including patients and staff, suffered second and third degree burns. Now, that's one of the examples of disability bias. These examples of bias, the categories. There was a color bias. Now, this is the disability bias. Now, we're going to the ethnicity scenario, okay? A bias. Two people of a different country who were attending university, they were university students speaking in their language, were attending a department reception when another student, one of a different race, deliberately bumped into one of them. When one of the students from a different country said, "Hey, watch where you're going," the student that is from the country that the other students are visiting to go to school in responded by saying, "I'll go wherever I want. This is my country." You call them what they call them, uh, trying to be offensive. So the aggressor proceeded to punch the foreign student in the face. And I'm not saying these countries, I'm not saying their ethnicity on purpose, okay? I'm not doing it. Gender scenario. We know that one race against another, okay? Now it's the gender scenario. A man entered a community college and shot and killed a female in a corridor. He then entered a classroom with 10 women and 48 men, fired a shot into the ceiling, and said, "I want the women. I hate feminists." He sent all the men from the room, lined the women up against the wall, and opened fire, killing 6 of the women and wounding the others. Now, I have an issue with this. 48 men, one person with a gun, and they allowed him to order them out and to leave those defenseless women in there with him. Now, this is 48 men and 10 women in a class, and 48 men went out of the room at his demand and left those women in there to be killed and wounded. That makes no sense whatsoever. It's ridiculous. Gender identity scenario. This is getting me here. A transgender woman was walking down the street near her home when three men walking toward her said, "Hey, what's your problem? Huh?" She kept walking, trying to ignore them. However, as they got close, one yelled, "We don't want no queers in this neighborhood." And the second one knocked her to the ground. Evil is on the rise, isn't it? Then we have race as a bias scenario. In a parking lot next to a bar, a 29-year-old foreign American male was attacked by a 51-year-old resident male wielding a tire iron. The victim suffered severe lacerations and a broken arm. Investigation revealed that the offender and victim had previously exchanged racial insults in the bar. The offender irritated, the offender initiated the exchange by calling the victim by a well-known and recognized epithet used against the people of the offended's country and complained that the offended were taking away jobs from Americans. My goodness. Then we have the religion scenario. Overnight, unknown persons broke into a synagogue and destroyed several priceless religious objects. The perpetrators drew a large swastika on the door and wrote, "Death to Jews" on a wall. Although other valuable items were present, none were stolen. That's ignorance at the max, isn't it? I tell you, this stuff is going on, but we have been forewarned and we are warned now. Sexual orientation. Five gay male friends, some of whom were wearing makeup and jewelry, were exiting a well known bar, they say gay bar, when they were approached by a group of men who were unknown to them. The men began to ridicule the gay men's feminine appearance and shouted, "Sissy," "girly men," and other slurs at them. Then escalated to physically attacking the victims, rendering them unconscious. This hate is something else. And this was updated July the 2nd, 2024, U.S. Department of Justice. U.S. Department of Justice. And they have the phone number and everything here. So now let me go to this other site that I came across today. It's the Foundation to Combat Anti Semitism. Okay, now let me get here because this is very interesting and they have some charts here. Uh, so you can donate to this site. It's the FCAS.org. FCAS.org. And there's a nationwide survey that reveals all types of prejudice are on the rise. And this was November 26, 2024 research report. In 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. wrote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." And that is so true. That is so true. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. It is precisely this mutual, mutuality, excuse me, that we have identified in FCAS, nationwide tracking survey on Jewish hate and all forms of hate. Now, they have an ad here. Stand Up to Jewish Hate, the U.S. Anti Semitism Landscape Survey. Prejudice in various forms is largely moving in parallel lines on the rise since late 2023. In the same time frame, fewer Americans believe these types of prejudice are major issues in the U.S. Interestingly, even as some prejudicial beliefs increase, people seem to be noticing less prejudice around them and talking about it less. Next, perceived threats are up across the board. Perceived threats are up across the board. Our ongoing research tracks the trends in anti Semitism in the context of other forms of prejudice, and in this summer's survey, we observed prejudice on the rise against all groups of people that we track. For example, when asked if specific groups threaten the unity of American society, U.S. adults were more likely to agree with that statement in June 2024 compared to December 2023 across every group on the receiving end of prejudice. The percentage of Americans thinking Jews are at least somewhat a threat rose 6 points in 6 months. The percentage of Americans thinking Jews are at least somewhat a threat rose 6 points in 6 months. And they say black here, and you know how I am about calling us black. People accept it, but my skin is brown. Okay. For black Americans, it rose 5 points. For transgender people, it was 3 points. Growth was visible for all groups. That's in 6 months' time. These are, of course, variations in these trends, particularly before December 2023. Between June and December of 2023, some perceived threats increased and some decreased. We will continue to monitor whether and how all forms of prejudice move in lockstep over time. So, younger Americans are more likely to perceive growing threats from all groups. On average, their belief in these perceived threats increased 6 points in 6 months, double that of Americans 50 and older. Negative movement in 18 to 29 year olds was observed across all types of prejudice, though lower for prejudice against white people and evangelical Christians. I want to do that again. On average, their belief in these perceived threats increased 6 points in 6 months, double that of Americans 50 and older. Negative movement in 18 to 29-year-olds was observed across all types of prejudice, though lower for prejudice against white people and evangelical Christians. My goodness. So there's a percent of Americans who think these groups are somewhat or very much a threat to the unity of American society. And this is something else. I want you to see this. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to share this screen. And you can see this chart yourself of how people and their prejudices and all that, how people are thinking in this day and time. It's dangerous. The percent of Americans who think these groups are somewhat or very much a threat to the unity of American society. Look at this: 70% undocumented immigrants, 60% evangelical Christians, 50% transgender people, 40% white people, 30% lesbian and gay people, 20% black people. Then there's Jewish people also in that. And then we have the Latinos, and then we have the 10% Asian Device. And answer. Double tap to answer. Native button. Americans. Incoming call. 0%. And this is June 2023, December 2023, and June 2024. Okay. Email screen off. All right. Now, and here's this other. Yet Americans don't see prejudice as a growing problem. After this chart here, and it says, yet Americans don't see prejudice as a growing problem. So let me stop sharing here. Okay. Now, let me get back to that. Even as prejudicial beliefs toward different groups are increasing this year, Americans don't think prejudice has become a more serious problem in this country. In fact, prejudice was perceived as less of a major issue this summer compared to last December. For example, 46% of adults consider racism against Black Americans to be a major problem in the U.S., down from 48% last December. So, wow, down from 48%, 2 points down. This side, it's a slight decrease, is visible across almost all types of prejudice, including Hispanic, Asian, Muslim, Jewish, and LGBTQ. Prejudice against women is the exception, with a consistent 38% believing it is a major problem. So at least we could agree on that, huh? Younger Americans stand out in this area as well. 18 to 29-year-olds are generally more likely to label different forms of prejudice as major problems, but the seriousness of the problem is dropping for them just like other age cohorts. My goodness. The worse it gets, the less it seems to be a serious thought for people. That's amazing. That's what they say. The more it happens, the more you get accustomed to it, and then it seems like just a norm. But it'll never be a norm to me. I was watching. I don't think I mentioned it on Tuesday's webcast, but I was looking. I decided to watch a movie, which I had gone across past that movie title many times in the past years. So I said, I'm going to see what this is about. Had no idea. I don't like to read what it tells us about what the movie's about and all of that. I don't like to read that because it seems to take away uh, something from it if I know what it's about. So I said, I'm going to watch this. And it was, let me see, Killers of the Flower Moon. And it was about the Osage tribe. And that's what I'm going to say. I might have mentioned that on Tuesday. I might have. But anyway, I said the more I try to settle myself, and I know that God is going to let it be all right, but yet something else pops up that really grabs your emotions. And that was one of them. Americans don't see prejudice as a growing problem, in part because they report not hearing prejudice as often in their own lives. For example, 40% of people say they've heard a friend, family member, or colleague say something that felt biased or prejudiced against Hispanic people. That's down 2 points from last December. It's down 2 points from last December. So we see similar trends for other forms of prejudice, with the exception of prejudice against Jews, a topic they will return to on this site. So if people are not hearing prejudice as often, it could mean one or both of the following. Americans are more aware of prejudice and less likely to express it in their social circles. Then the other one is Americans are more inured to prejudice and not noticing when it's spoken as much as they used to notice it. My goodness. And that word, where is it? Inured. I want to go there to that word. That's the first time I've seen that word. So I want to go there to that word. Inured. Let's see. Okay. Let me. I said it right. Inure is accustomed someone to something, especially something unpleasant. People are more accustomed to it. My God. But that's true. That is so true. Similarly, Americans are talking less about many kinds of prejudice. People report having fewer conversations about most forms of racism and anti Semitism, though conversation has increased slightly about prejudice against Hispanic people and LGBTQ people, LGBTQ plus people. And they have a bulletin going across here about National Interfaith Coalition to call for an end to anti Semitism and all faith based hate. The anti Semitism dog whistles spread through coded language. Oh my goodness, there's just so much going on. So much going on. In general, despite an increase, I'm repeating, in prejudicial beliefs, Americans are noticing prejudice less and talking about it less, and it seems to them less of a problem than it did late last year. So that's why I said inured. Okay? They're accustomed to it. We're accustomed to it. And it doesn't bite or sting as bad. Now, there's a percent who think of each prejudice as a major problem. A percent who think of each prejudice as a major problem. There's 60% Black Americans, 50% Jewish people, 40% LGBTQ plus, 30% Hispanic Americans, 20% women, 10% Asian, and 0% Muslims. Okay, I think that is 10% though. It's in the Muslims and Asians. Yes, those go together. Okay. Now, and that's December 2023 to June 2024. My goodness, this is terrible. This is awesome, awful. And so, what this site is saying, stand up against anti-Semitism. And the Foundation to Combat Anti-Semitism was founded in 2019 by Robert Kraft to stand up to Jewish hate and all hate. We uniquely reach unengaged non Jewish Americans, moving them to become allies through empathy building national mass media and social advertising. We partner and convene diverse leaders and groups to create awareness and understanding, and our command center monitors the digital landscape 24/7 to understand where and how hate is spreading and completes national research on this topic. My goodness. So there's more information on that. So you can go to info@fcas.org for more information. And I just came across this site today, and this is current. This is current. Oh my goodness. This is amazing. This is amazing. Talking about this hate and this prejudice. It's terrible. It's terrible out here. And we all know it. The human psychology. Let's see what time is it. Okay, I have 16 minutes. Human psychology of hatred, prejudice, and aggression. I'm going to take just a few seconds for one thing here. So would you please just let me see a few seconds. See here. God is good to us, and I am thankful for everything that He does for us. He's doing for us. It is amazing. And He protects us from all of this that's going on. And I am so thankful. And I pray for those who are in these biased So I'm going to go ahead and do this that I just came up with. Human psychology of hatred, prejudice, and aggression. And this is JOSR Journals. JOSR Journals. Okay, some journals here. Hate and prejudice, that's dangerous, dangerous, dangerous. It is terrible. It is terrible. And I try my best to love everyone. And just because I love everyone doesn't mean that I have to be around them if they don't like me. Human psychology of hatred, prejudice, and aggression. ATM Aristoteman. Aristoteman. Just give a bit of this. People dedicate their lives to studying this for us and giving us the reports. There are people dedicated to getting this information to us so that we won't be caught unaware of all this is going on. And some people don't want to admit it, just like they said, so many people, it has dropped people's, see, they don't believe that we are prejudiced here in the United States. My God. Hate or bias is the greatest human weakness, which is associated with violence and terrorism, even leads to war and genocide. Hate or hatred is the greatest human weakness, which is associated with violence and terrorism, even leads to war and genocide. Hatred is a kind of strong emotional feeling towards objects of disliking, which is preceded by prejudice. There are many kinds of hatred displayed by humans. So this study focuses mainly on hatred and prejudice because human beings lie, live in a society, and because of many social and individual dynamics, there is a creation of in group and out group, which is a basis of attitude of natural and hatred towards others. Of hatred toward others. My God. There are many studies conducted by researchers to find out fundamentals of formation of hatred and how human beings cross all the limits of ethics and morality when they are blind with hatred. Researchers also tried to define hatred to find out why people behave violent towards the object of their hatred. Some researchers also found out how world religions, despite the extraordinary impact in developing societies, also instigate hatred towards other religions and the followers of other religions. My goodness, this is terrible. And the introduction here, and this was submitted uh, 4/24, 2021, April 24th, 2021, and it was accepted in August, no, in May the 8th, 2021. So this is a research paper. My goodness. So I would admonish you, I'm going to close out now, but I would admonish you to go to this site, JOSR journals.org. JOSRjournals.org. I appreciate you. I think I've had enough about this prejudice and this hate today, because we witness it every day. We hear it on the television, we see it on our phones, we see it on our tablets, we see it on our computers, we hear it on the radio. If you listen to the radio, it's all over every single day. And it's so, people are so accustomed to it, just like this word inured, so accustomed to it till they barely fidget when they hear of these things. But I tell you, I never want to get used to it. I never want to get accustomed to it. I want to always be in prayer, pray for this world and all of humanity, that God will bless us to love each other, even though we know everybody is not going to love everybody. We know that that's a given. We understand that the things in this world, many people are going to get worse and worse with the hatred, the violence, and all of that. But we, as persons, personally, can do our part in loving every human being, although we don't have to accept their ways if they are hateful and against humanity or any other source of hate. We don't have to accept that, but we can love our fellow man, woman, boy, girl. We can do that. Let love abide. And my slogan here: live, love, survive, thrive, 2025 and forever. That is my life's slogan. The Lord gave that to me at the beginning of this year, and it will be my slogan forever. Forever. Live, love, survive, thrive, 2025 and forever. Thank you so much for joining me. I know I went slow today, but I needed to talk about this. So be very careful of the information you consume. Always check and recheck. And I know that you know to do this, many, but I just want to remind us to check and recheck the information that we get and the rhetoric that's out there and out here in this world. And the other day we said you have to blow back the trash and take a drink of water. And then he also uses this, says, let it run off your back like water off of a duck's back. And if you've ever seen water run off of a duck, you know they're resilient to uh, being soaked. You understand what I'm saying? The water doesn't sink down in there because they have a film or what should I call it? A chemical in their feathers that helps them not to absorb heavy amounts of water and to let water run off your back like water off a duck's back. Blow back the trash and take a drink of water. Live, love, survive, thrive. 2025 and forever. May the Lord continually, I pray that He will continually bless and keep you and that you will continue to want to be kept. God is good to all of us, and He is worthy to be praised. Thank you so much for joining me. God willing, tomorrow will be the Mother's Board Inc. And Dr. J.J. McCollister and myself, 1 p.m. And on Saturday at 7:39 p.m. and Sunday at 7 a.m. is Greater Gospel Temple Church of Praise and Worship and Inspiration of God Ministries. Thank you so much, and I'm reminding you, my music is on Spotify, it's on Amazon Music, YouTube Music, iTunes. Um, Let me see. Did I say YouTube? My music is out there. It's been out here for years, and I add to it. As a matter of fact, I'm working on some new music right now. And so, if the Lord lets me and sanctions it, and I believe He will, I will be releasing some new music. I will be releasing a new book, and I am just so thankful. I love you.